Hi, this is Bruce, and today we're going to do the first episode from our series, From the Archive. We are going to be looking at two prints by André Kertész, who is one of the great photographers of the 20th century. Kertész was born in Hungary in 1894, and he immigrated to Paris in 1925. Within 3 or 4 years of arriving in Paris, he would take some of his most famous photographs, like Chez Mondrian, The Satiric Dancer, and of course, The Fork. The Fork is a print that he went back to many times in his lifetime, and we are going to look at two prints to see the differences between an early print and a later print. And we're going to start today by first looking at the later print. And this is a print that would have been made towards the end of André's life. I refer to him affectionately as André, as we represent the Kertész estate. Frankly, I feel like he's part of my family. I was raised by a photographer, Larry Silver, and early in my life, I remember many conversations with him looking at Kertész books. So fortunate to represent the estate and be able to have prints like these to show you. This particular print, as I said, was made later in his life, and it is The Fork, of course, is one of his most iconic images. The Fork is truly a minimal yet modernist, really abstract composition of light, shadows, and curves. André transforms this simple dining utensil into really a striking, almost monumental sculptural form. Here, the fork rests across the white plate. Its sharp metallic lines contrast with the curves of the dish and the shadows beneath it. The shadows of the prongs of the fork stretch across the plate and surface below it, creating this sense of movement and abstraction. And much of the picture has this negative space in there, or in fact, tablecloth. This was an image that he actually took after a dinner party at Fernand Léger's house. People don't really know that story, but it's true that André had many friendships during that time. He was friends with Brancusi, he was friends with Calder. He really hung out with some of the greatest artists and most important scholars of the day. When we look at this print of the fork, we see that there's this contrast between the shadow and the white bowl is very important. We see that the reflection of the light hitting the metallic fork adds a sense of dimension. But we also see some elements here, a little bit of spots, discoloration. Keep in mind that this was a negative that was made in 1928. So by the time this print was made, we're talking 50 years. And as a glass plate negative, they are susceptible to environmental issues, to moisture, chemicals. And the emulsion surface of the glass plate, which holds the image, is susceptible to dust or moisture or dirt, and it can degrade over time. Here we probably have an example of a print that maybe saw some aging, if you will. It was also made towards the end of André's life. At that point, he was very famous. People wanted the most famous images, and so he was making more prints than he had ever made before. He had been working with a printer by the name of Igor Bach, who was helping him make these prints because he was having trouble. André was having trouble in the darkroom. He was dizzy, having dizzy spells, and that really began in the late 30s, early 40s. All that sort of goes into the history of this print. And now we're going to take a look at a print that was made roughly 50 years earlier. And this is an example of what we call an early print or a vintage print. We don't know exactly when it was made because we don't have any stamps on the back where we knew where he lived at that particular time. We don't have provenance going further back. We do know that this was left in the estate of the artist at the time when he passed away in 1985. By looking at the print, you can see that there's a bit of a greenish patina to the paper, which was indicative of the papers that they were using in Paris in the 20s and 30s. But when you're looking at this image, you can see how cleaner it is and the greater tonal range. You have really different range of grays. We don't have such contrast where it's so black and white as in the other print. Here there's mid-tones. The shadow is really nice and even. You don't see as many spots and interference, distractions within the background. In terms of the surface, the paper is single weight and has a semi-gloss surface, which was also paper that he was using at the time. This is an unusual print. It's a larger print. The one on the right is an 8x10 print. This is 11x14. In terms of dating this picture, we've already discussed the paper and the quality of the image itself, but we can often find out a lot about a picture when you look at the back. I implore people when they have an opportunity to look at pictures, when they're considering pictures for their collection. For example, we can see here remnants of glue. Because of that, we can surmise that this was actually mounted to board at some point, which would indicate that it was made likely for an exhibition, which makes sense to put all this energy and investment into a larger print, that it would have been made for exhibition. We see the signature here. It's a little bit shaky. This might represent a signature that would have been made towards the end of his life. And then it's important to note that when André came to New York in 1936 to escape the political unrest in Europe. He brought back with him very few prints. He basically came back with a suitcase and left most of his prints behind. In the case of this print, he took it with him. So it remained in his possession. Perhaps what happened is towards the end of his life, the print fell off the mount. He decided that he would just not put it back on the mount, and he signed it. Now it remains in the estate. What's really important here is to know that while this is a beautiful print, and this is clearly a piece that was made during André's lifetime, supervised by André, there's a big difference between later prints and earlier prints. When you're thinking about these prints, the time when they were made, the paper that was used, what was the artist's intention, we know that at this time, André really put a lot of effort into making this print absolutely the way he wanted it, because he didn't want to waste the paper. He knew it was something that you'd be keeping, where the print on the right was something that might have been made for the market. So for those reasons, this print would be considered by many to be more desirable. This is a print that an institution would like to have in their collection. This is something that is extraordinarily rare. The opportunity to be able to show it side by side really gives you a sense for why some people prefer vintage prints and why the more rare.